Creepy true story. The night I met a monster on Calle Ocho. I've been a cop in Miami for nearly a decade. I've seen my share of crazy things, but one night I encountered something that still haunts me. I'm not a superstitious guy, but after that night I couldn't shake the feeling that pure evil walked the streets just like anyone else. It was around midnight on a humid summer night. We got a call about a guy acting erratically on Calle Ocho, right in the heart of Little Havana. The dispatcher said he was tripping on bath salts. Now, bath salts, that's one of those synthetic drugs that makes people lose their minds. I'd heard stories, but I hadn't seen it firsthand. We headed out, expecting the usual, the crazed ramblings, the erratic behavior, maybe some shouting and flailing. But this was different. As soon as we arrived, I knew we were dealing with something beyond what training could prepare us for. There he was, standing in the middle of the street, illuminated by a streetlight. His eyes were wild, unfocused, but intense, like he wasn't fully there. His body was drenched in sweat despite the cool night breeze, and he was covered in blood. A lot of blood. My partner, Officer Cruz, looked at me. "Did he cut himself?" he muttered. But as we looked closer, it was clear that he didn't have any injuries, at least not visible ones. This blood, it didn't look like it came from him. Before I could process it, he bolted. It was like watching an animal. The way he moved, his arms flailed, his legs kicking wildly, he seemed possessed, barely human. We chased him down Calle Ocho, through alleyways and past dimly lit storefronts. My heart was pounding, and not just from the adrenaline of the chase. Something about him was just wrong. Finally, we cornered him. He turned and looked at us, baring his teeth, and I swear it looked like he was snarling. He reeked of blood, sweat, and something foul, something that made me gag. I almost didn't want to touch him, but we had no choice. We managed to cuff him, though it wasn't easy. He was writhing, screaming words I couldn't understand, his voice guttural and raw. When we got him into the cruiser, he began banging his head against the glass divider, so hard that I worried he'd knock himself out. I've never seen someone so out of control. He didn't seem to feel pain, didn't respond to any commands or calming words, just this unrelenting, primal rage. Back at the station, he calmed down a little, enough to slump over and start mumbling. It was nonsense, phrases in Spanish, words that made no sense together. But then he started laughing, a low, chilling laugh that seemed to echo in the holding cell. I remember feeling a shiver run down my spine. We booked him and left him to the detectives, grateful to be done with that nightmare. Cruz and I didn't say much on the way home, but I could see in his eyes that he felt the same, uneasy, haunted. The next day, I came in to start my shift, and the detective on the case pulled me aside. "Hey, you remember that guy you brought in last night? Turns out he had blood on him from his family." "What do you mean?" I asked, not fully understanding. He looked at me, dead serious, and said, "He killed them, all of them, and he ate part of them." My stomach dropped. I wanted to throw up. I didn't believe him at first. I couldn't. But he showed me the report, and the details were all there. The bodies were found mutilated, half-eaten in the small apartment they shared just a few blocks from where we picked him up. The blood, all that blood on him, it wasn't his. That night, I barely slept. I lay there staring at the ceiling, unable to get his face out of my mind. The wild eyes, the blood-stained skin, the unearthly growl that sounded more animal than human. I kept thinking of his laugh, that hollow, evil laugh that didn't sound like it came from this world. I wish I could say that was the only time I felt like I'd brushed against something evil in my line of work, but it was definitely the first time I realized that monsters are real. They walk among us, and sometimes, if you're unlucky, you come face to face with one.